The rain came down in a steady drizzle, soaking the cracked pavement outside the small roadside repair shop nestled in the middle of nowhere. The air was thick with the scent of oil, rubber, and wet earth. 12-year-old Ethan stood with a wrench in hand, grease smeared across his cheek, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. He worked with a kind of focus most kids his age reserved for video games, tightening bolts under the hood of a battered pickup while his grandfather leaned against the wall, watching him with a proud but tired smile. Ethan had been helping his grandfather since he was old enough to hold a flashlight. Raised by the old man since infancy, he had no memory of his parents, just stories Grandpa sometimes told when the nights got quiet and whiskey loosened his tongue. Ethan had long stopped asking questions. The shop was his world, and under the hood was where he felt most alive. Then came the sound of tires crunching on gravel. Both turned to look as a rusted sedan limped into the lot, steam hissing from beneath its hood. The car barely made it to the garage before coming to a jerky stop. The driver's door creaked open, and a woman stepped out, shielding herself from the rain with one hand. She was in her early 30s, soaked through, her jeans clinging to her legs, hair plastered to her face. Her eyes were weary, dark circles etched beneath them, and her hands trembled slightly as she walked over. I'm sorry, she said, voice hoarse. My car started smoking a few miles back. I was hoping someone could just look at it. Ethan nodded quickly before his grandfather could say a word. I can take a look. You can wait inside, ma'am. She blinked, surprised by the boy's confidence. Are you sure? You're young. Ethan shrugged and grinned. I've fixed worse. Grandpa gave her a nod. He knows what he's doing. The woman hesitated before retreating to the shelter of the garage, arms crossed tightly. Ethan lifted the hood, steam rising into his face, but he didn't flinch. He murmured quietly to himself, checking hoses, wires, the radiator. His hands moved with purpose, sure and steady. Grandpa handed him tools wordlessly when needed, standing close but letting the boy take charge. Inside. The woman watched them work, her fingers twitching against her arms. There was something about the boy, his eyes, the shape of his jaw, that made her heart ache in a way she couldn't explain. She hadn't planned to stop here. She hadn't planned to feel anything. After some time, Ethan stepped back and wiped his hands on a rag. You had a cracked hose and a loose belt. Nothing major, just needed tightening and sealing. Should be okay now. She stepped out, staring at him in awe. Thank you. I don't really have much to pay. Ethan shook his head. It's okay, we help people here. That's what Grandpa says. Grandpa gave a grunt of agreement, but his eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the woman. Something flickered behind his gaze, like recognition or regret, but he said nothing. The woman bit her lip, then reached into her glove box for change. Her hand brushed against something she hadn't seen in years, a torn photograph. She pulled it out, heart pounding. It was the picture she had kept of her baby boyther, one she'd been forced to give up when life went dark. Her hands trembled. As she looked from the photo to Ethan, the resemblance was unmistakable. She turned back, her voice barely above a whisper. What did you say your name was? Ethan, he said, curious now. Why ? She stared at him, stunned. Nothing. It's just, you remind me of someone I used to know. Ethan smiled shyly, not knowing what to say. But something inside her cracked open. She had come looking for a mechanic, but maybe fate had driven her straight to her son. Inside the garage, the soft hum of the overhead lights mingled with the rhythmic clink of tools. The space smelled of motor oil, steel, and the faint sweetness of rain still pattering against the windows. The walls were lined with shelves cluttered with bolts, hoses, and cans of lubricant, a kind of organized chaos that Ethan moved through like he'd been born there. He was crouched beside the old sedan, sleeves rolled up, his small hands expertly adjusting a clamp on the radiator hose. Claire stood nearby, arms folded, trying to stay out of the way. Her soaked jacket dripped quietly onto the concrete floor, but she didn't seem to notice. What she noticed was the boy, how sure he was, how focused. Most kids his age were glued to screens or sulking through homework, but Ethan, he moved with the calm of someone much older, as if life had forced him to grow up too fast. So, she said gently, trying to bridge the silence. How long have you been helping out here? Since I was about 6, Ethan replied without looking up. At first Grandpa just let me hand him tools, but now I do most of the small stuff. Claire nodded slowly, watching the way he worked, how his fingers moved with instinct. That's pretty impressive. You must have learned a lot from him. Asterisk. Ethan gave a small smile as he tightened the last bolt. Yeah, Grandpa's real smart. Says I've got a knack for machines. He paused and looked up at her for the first time. You from around here? Asterisk. She shook her head. No, just passing through. Trying to find work and maybe something else I lost along the way. Her voice caught slightly, but she pushed through it. What about you, your parents? Asterisk. Ethan shrugged and wiped his hands on a dirty rag. Never met my mum. Grandpa says she left when I was a baby. Don't know much about her, just that she couldn't stay. Asterisk. Claire's face went pale. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out at first. She tried to breathe, but it felt like the air had been pulled from the room. Her hand went instinctively to the pendant around her neck, the one she never took off, not even when she slept. Inside was the only photo she had left of her son, a photo she had looked at every night for 12 long years. Asterisk. Do you ever think about her? She asked softly. Asterisk. Ethan leaned against the car, the smile fading just a little. Sometimes, not a lot. I mean, I wonder who she was, what she looked like, if she ever thinks about me. But Grandpa raised me good. He says she probably had her reasons. Asterisk. Claire nodded slowly, blinking back the sting in her eyes. The guilt she'd carried for years, the nights she screamed into her pillow, the letters returned unopened. It all came flooding back. She had tried, God knew she had tried, but the door had been slammed shut on her by the very man who now watched her son with quiet pride. Asterisk. She looked at Ethan again. Really looked. The shape of his mouth, the color of his eyes, even the tilt of his head when he was thinking. Her heart twisted painfully in her chest. It was him. It had to be. Asterisk. But how could she tell him? How do you tell a child that you're the mother he thinks abandoned him? Asterisk. Before she could speak, Ethan turned and grinned. All done. Should hold up fine. Now, you might want to get the radiator flushed soon though. Asterisk. Claire managed a nod, her voice barely a whisper. Thank you. Asterisk. He tilted his head. You okay, ma'am? Asterisk. She blinked, smiling faintly through the mist in her eyes. Yeah, you remind me of someone I once loved very much. Asterisk. Ethan looked down, unsure of what to say. Claire stepped closer but stopped herself. Asterisk. Somewhere, in the quiet space between them, a connection had sparked, soft, fragile, and unspoken. Asterisk. A mother had found her son, not with words, but with the quiet beating of a heart that still recognized its own. Asterisk. Claire slid into the front seat of her car, the leather cold and cracked beneath her. Her heart was pounding, but she didn't know when it entirely. She leaned forward, opening the glove compartment in search of whatever loose change or small cash she might have left. She didn't want to walk away without giving something to the boy who had helped her, who had spoken with such gentle honesty about a mother he never knew. Asterisk. The glove box stuck for a moment, then popped open with a soft thud. Receipts, old napkins, a broken pen tumbled out. She reached inside, digging through the mess, and her fingers brushed against something stiffer than paper. She pulled it out and froze. It was worn, creased 100 times over, edges torn from years of being tucked away, a photograph small, faded, but still as hauntingly beautiful as the day it was taken. A woman younger than held a baby swaddled in blue, his tiny hand resting over her heart. The woman was her, and the baby, her son, the son she had lost. Asterisk. Claire stared at it, the world going quiet around her. Her breath caught in her chest. She hadn't meant to find this today, hadn't even remembered it was still in the car. But here it was, after all this time, staring back at her like some ghost of the past refusing to let go. Asterisk. She looked up through the windshield. Asterisk. Ethan stood a few feet away, wiping his hands on a rag, speaking to his grandfather. He laughed at something the old man said, just a quick grin, crooked and full of light. Claire's throat tightened. She looked down again at the photo. The same eyes, same chin, same little crease near the left eyebrow. It wasn't just a resemblance. It was him. Her hand trembled violently now, the photograph shaking as her fingers gripped the edges. The air in the car grew thick and heavy, as if the weight of 12 missing years had suddenly collapsed onto her chest. She blinked rapidly, fighting back the flood rising behind her eyes. She had spent years searching for him, writing letters that were returned unopened, making phone calls that were ignored, driving down streets hoping to catch a glimpse of the boy she had only known for months before everything was ripped away. The courts didn't care. The man who raised her child, her own father, had cut her off with words so sharp they still echoed in her dreams. But now, by some twist of fate or divine grace, she had pulled into the one place he lived, the one shop where he worked, and Her Ethan, had fixed her car with hands so steady, so kind. Claire clutched the photo to her chest, her shoulders trembling. Outside, Ethan looked toward the car, curious. He took a step forward, his brow furrowed slightly. Claire quickly wiped her eyes, tucking the photograph into her jacket. She opened the door slowly, stepping out like the ground beneath her had changed. And in a way, everything had changed, because she wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was a mother standing in front of the child she had never stopped loving, and had just found again. The rain had finally stopped. The last few drops clung to the garage roof, dripping gently onto the gravel below. A soft golden glow bathed everything in warmth as the clouds began to part, revealing streaks of orange and pink in the evening sky. The world felt washed clean, like something sacred was about to unfold. Claire stood outside the garage, clutching the photograph in her hand, her heart thudding like a drum. She could hear the murmur of Ethan's voice inside, the occasional laugh. She took a shaky breath and stepped forward. Ethan, she called gently. He turned, wiping grease from his fingers. Yeah. She approached slowly, her eyes locked on his. I need to show you something. Ethan's smile faded a little as he noticed the emotion in her face. She held out the photograph, her hand trembling slightly. He took it and studied it carefully. His brows drew together. That's a baby. She nodded. It's you when you were just a few months old. He looked up, confused. How do you have this? Before she could answer, the screen door creaked open and Grandpa stepped outside. His face hardened when he saw the photo in Ethan's hand. Claire turned to him, her voice calm but trembling. You recognize it, don't you? The old man's mouth opened, but no words came at first. His eyes darted between the photo, Claire, and Ethan. Then he let out a breath, heavy and regretful. That's her, he whispered. That's your mother. Ethan blinked, stunned. What? Grandpa stepped closer, his shoulders hunched under the weight of what he had carried for years. I told you she left, that she didn't want you, but that wasn't true. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she stayed silent. I was angry, Grandpa continued. After your father died, I blamed her for everything. I thought she was irresponsible. I thought she wasn't ready. When she tried to come back, I wouldn't let her. I sent her letters back unopened, told her never to come near you again. I thought I was protecting you. Ethan's hands trembled as he stared at the photo. You lied to me. I thought I was doing what was right, Grandpa said, voice cracking. But I see now I took away your choice. I took away her chance. And I'm sorry, Ethan, I truly am. Silence fell, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves in the post-rain breeze. Claire stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. I never stopped looking for you, never stopped loving you. I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I had no choice, but I prayed I'd find you again. Ethan looked up, his eyes wide, uncertain. For a long second, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, he walked toward her. She braced herself for rejection, but instead, Ethan reached out and wrapped his arms around her. She gasped softly, then cradled him to her chest, holding him like she'd waited her whole life to. Grandpa turned away, tears slipping down his weathered cheeks. In the golden glow of the fading sun, something broken had begun to mend. A boy had found his mother, and a family, once torn apart by silence and pain, was finding its way back to love. The warmth of the kitchen wrapped around them like a long-lost embrace. The small home behind the garage, usually quiet and dim, now glowed with life. The table was set with mismatched plates, a steaming pot of stew at the center, and the faint hum of a country song playing from a dusty old radio. The scent of garlic bread and fresh herbs filled the air. Ethan sat at the table, nestled between Claire and his grandfather, his shoulders just barely touching theirs. He glanced at both of them, shy but smiling, his eyes wide, still trying to process the whirlwind of the last few hours. He wasn't just the quiet boy who fixed cars anymore. He was a son, a grandson, a piece of a family that had been broken, and now was somehow whole again. Claire reached over and gently smoothed his hair, her fingers lingering just a little too long, as if still needing to believe he was real. You look just like your dad when you eat stew, she whispered with a soft laugh. Ethan grinned, cheeks flushing. Was he any good with cars? Claire chuckled, glancing at the old man beside them. Not even a little. Your grandpa used to yell at him for messing up spark plugs. The old man smirked and shook his head. I yelled at everyone. Still do. Asterisk, they all laughed together, one of those laughs that start small but carry something bigger with it. Release, relief, forgiveness. Asterisk later, Claire disappeared into the kitchen, returning with a cake held in both hands. It wasn't or fancy. The icing was crooked, the letters slightly smudged, but Ethan read them out loud with a beaming smile. Welcome home. Asterisk, his chest tightened. It wasn't just about the cake, it was about what the words meant, what they reclaimed. Home. A place he thought he already knew, and now knew more deeply than ever. Asterisk, Claire set the cake down and leaned in. I didn't have time to get it perfect, she said with a tearful laugh, but I figured it didn't need to be. Asterisk, Ethan shook his head. It's perfect. Asterisk, they lit a single candle, not because it was his birthday, but because it felt like a beginning. And as the flame flickered and they sang softly, the weight of 12 lost years began to melt into something new, something whole. Asterisk, after dinner, they sat around the living room, the old couch groaning beneath them, telling stories and flipping through photo albums Grandpa had kept hidden away. Claire shared memories Ethan had never heard of, lullabies she used to sing, of the stuffed elephant he once carried everywhere. Ethan listened with wide eyes and a full heart. Asterisk, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like something was missing. Asterisk, he looked up at the woman who'd come in out of the rain, and the man who'd raised him with grit and love in equal measure, and he smiled. Asterisk, what began as a broken-down car on a rainy afternoon had become something none of them expected. A second chance, a reunion, a miracle. Asterisk, asterisk.